Hi, happy Thanksgiving. And I guess it's time for families to get together. And it's so important in this time of so many people getting divorced, so many fractured families, so many children in foster care, so many parents in prison, in jail, uh, that we do have these times together. Uh, uh, because our society has been fractured through our education system dumbing down Americans with the misinformation, but our policemen have war drugs. That turns out that the only people that get hurt in war are the civilians. Um, uh, the mass shootings they had in Chicago, uh, or should I say that one policeman was shot 16 times. How many times do we have to see our court system destroy the fabric of our families? How many times do we have to find excuses for why Johnny can't get a job? It used to be Johnny can't read, now Johnny can't get a job. What is the excuse for our colleges charging so much money? Slowly I watched it climb up to outrageous. You could see it in the 80s, and now we have here today where uh, we're in a situation now that where we have a more selfish society. It reminds me of a story I once heard about how it was in Egypt before the white man came along. You heard of like Cleopatra and stuff like that, to where the story goes that back in those days, that a man and a woman, they made it for life. Uh, um, and that them living off the land and harmony and tending the earth, uh, so that it not only was it good for the planet, but it produced food for 'em. Well, the story goes that on the outside, to the outsiders, it looked like the women were like gods, and the men, uh, were were lesser, because the mother tending to their children so intensely for the first 9 years, to and um in trying to make sure they have the right nutrition, uh, and the right information, so that for their survival. Um, um, and and as we all know, during that time, um, um, they had the knowledge of geometry, astronomy, the basic science that we use today, still in the basic math that we use today, which they didn't have in Europe. Um, and because of the unity of the family and the mating for life in that society, they had really no diseases like they did in the European, and plus they didn't live with their animals. Um, eh, they utilized their innate curiosity, and their ability to use tools, and they also um, working together, you might say. is they had like the original philosophers, the original thinkers, and it was very important. And and so and one of the things that the first thing the Europeans found out about them is the way they felt about their hair. They felt that their hair was an extension of their nervous system in a sense because they had this idea that there was these waves that rippled not only in the water like when you throw a rock in a puddle, but also in the air that like we now might call radio waves or microwaves, and UV rays, etc. They had a sense of this, uh, and so they didn't cut their hair. And so that was one of the first things they did was cut their hair, thinking it was still their power and their strength. And so even in today, we have a stigma in the black society about our hair. I say, don't cut your hair, don't cut your children's hair. You know, and they had one tradition where they would do their first trimming to you know, at around 6, where they might take a quarter of an inch, to, but no more than an inch off the edge, and that, and if they, and you know, and but that was the most, and you would, and then if you do it like at 6, it was usually because there was a death, so that would be like the first time, like if there was deaths earlier, they wouldn't trim the hair or anything. But they also believed in bathing regularly too, which wasn't a European thing at that time. And it's only because they didn't know how to utilize the land in such a way so they could produce enough uh, materials to make more than 2 or 3 outfits. So and you can see how in today's society the woman is not held up, as the most uh, important tool for this child's education and understanding of the world. We pass our children off to at about the age of 6 and 7 to public schools where it seems like they're busy dumbing down the kids. We don't have home economics. Who needs it? You know, they will microwave your food. We have corporations that are that are farming now. The family farm is gone. I know that in today's society, we don't see people staying together like I alluded to at the beginning and with the divorce. You know, and that is part of the problem too. Is that we have an openly sex society to where it's all about the male gratification and and the worst thing that could happen to a teenage female is to get pregnant. It's devastating. It's a shame. It's disgusting. It's a taboo. So you start off with this taboo. You start off with this stigma that if with motherhood, so we encourage women to get a career first instead of saying, having a society where it is more adhesive to the development and the growth of 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 the humans. But that's the way it is now. We have women that are very jeopardized, and we have children that are very damaged, and we have air that's polluted, the water that's polluted, the soil that's polluted, and a system that I find that it's very 322, that it's very degrading. It's very um, you know, I can see where it could be some profit, where it's very profitable for certain people that have money, for the 1%, or 0.001%. No. Now, and I'm not really thinking Illuminati, but I'm thinking more that they come together to make these families come together to make sure they keep their money. And I'm just alluding to the Astor, the Bundys, the Collins, the Depoy, the Freemans, the Kennedys, the Lees, the Dessa, the Rockefeller, the Rothschilds, the Russell, the Van Dykes, and the McFarlane. I'm just alluding to those 13. That are sort of in charge of the Federal Reserve, and like DuPont, they do a lot with plastics. The plastics they use, and it sends out a lot of bad chemistry. Let me see. I could probably spell it better than I could say it if I ever wrote it down. You never know. But that's just the way it is, and we accept it as this is a modern time, and this is a modern. Oh, hell, I cannot pronounce it. PFOAs that are in the plastic. It's per fluoride acid. Well, I said that so bad, but the short for the shortness of it is the PFOA chemical that that that's used in all the plastic, and it's supposed to be really bad for you because it doesn't ever go away, so it builds up in your body. So we have ways that now that the way we live now is not in harmony with our society. Which reminds me of this other story, and you can take it anywhere you want. It's about in Oklahoma with the land grab. They said just before that there were actually, now if you imagine, there was actually people here before, and we'll call them the natives of this land, and the natives say they had lived in Oklahoma and they had homes. Because like you always hear about the tents, but you forget about hearing about their long houses. Well, the story goes is that they killed all of them, like Sitting Bull and all of them. They just slaughtered them all. After, and and they were gonna, it's Kansas and Oklahoma. They were gonna let them in, and Kansas and Oklahoma. So it was Oklahoma land drive. So they let them in, right? And um, these particular whites, just like the previous ones that they brought over here, was coming out of prison. Sort of like the story you hear about Australians that was, founded by a prison colony. So the same thing, they supposedly came out of prisons, and these people had been a generation in prison in London and France, and well, they're from London because of their debtor prisons and whatnot. They would throw the whole family in. And so the story goes that they let them run, and basically they say, you just use your imagination, that the people of the plains that was living there lived in houses. So they said that they went and they could just like grab a house, grab some land. Usually they grab the land with the house already on it first. So the story goes is that these people were so used to um, being fed, but they had never, because the British the Queen and King, they owned all the land around there and the food, right? That was on that land, like the deer. If you ever heard of like Robin Hood, and they were in the forest and they're illegally poaching the king's deers and stuff. So anyway, whether these people have been fed and everything in house, let's just say 2 generations, right? So they never really been anything but in jail, in prison. So anyways, the story goes is that when they got in the longhouse, they didn't know what to do. They had no clue. So they didn't tend the land. So they already had killed the buffalo off. So they killed everything off, the buffalo, the elk, so that so like they could live on the land. They decided we're not going to do it like we did in the South, uh, where let's say the same thing. They just moved white people in there and just and like and just moved the black people out. But they needed them because they didn't know how to tend the land. So in this case, they thought we're not going to do it like this. We're not going to have slaves. It's going to be a free state. Not slaves here. Well, the story goes is that when the military came by, to check on them because like certain ones ran, and other ones stayed, other ones ran to get to get their land deed notarized and put in their names and everything. So um, and they'd come by and they would see like the women, like they'll push their kids up forward so they could, like they would do like when they were, peeking out of their little cubbies or, in their lockup areas. They would, come to the door at food time. They would see them then coming to the door at food time, push, shove their kid up in front of them so you could see their kid the same way. And so they had to subsidize their food for a while because since they didn't tend the soil or do anything to the soil, it just eroded and it just became a dust bowl. Just, because like you know, cause that's just um, um, something that they hadn't had experience. They had no knowledge or anything of nature, and 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 so basically um, they had to think of new ways to farm, and so now you have today modern industrial farming. Uh, but because they just didn't know, and it's funny because like there's a story where they said like they tried to get a few children to come in a certain religious group or whatever, um, and so they got these few children and they got them at such a young age and they thought that they were just like black people just inherited knew how to, but what happened was is that the kids became like them, like instead of these kids that were, like these people that, like that navigated themselves at night, by using the stars and common sense and learning from their parents on how to do stuff. They didn't. They were scared of the dark, the British people that was now took adopted them. Um, and they only knew the information that was given to them, because when they come in the world, you don't know anything. You have to give information into the child. So, so that was a failure. So, so now we look at today, modern time, and we no longer have family farming. Um, we have a lot of GMOs, food. And we have a diabetes, uh, and all type of numerous problems because of our eating habits, because of the way we're living, and the biggest difference is nowadays that we have a society where our children are overly sex very young, but not putting in enough information to keep themselves a productive part of society. And we have things like we're having in Chicago, you know, and those children, those black kids do not stand a chance with the food they're eating, with the education system that they have, uh, with the oppression of black people, the racism, and the other things that we have that stigmatize our society. And at times like this, uh, um, I find very little to be grateful for the simple fact that a lot of things would take no time to straighten out, no time to change. But we're, and I think like with me, the biggest thing that I would love to go back to nature. I would love to be back in harmony with nature. But I think, like just like our ancestors, that we'd have to be clever enough and wise enough to know that it takes unity. It takes think tanks. It takes cooperation. And one thing that even if we did go back to the lowland, we don't want to go without light. And I think the way we utilize our resources today is more harmful. The way we rape our earth of its its lubrication. It's like the oil that in you know the way we rape it of its clean water and its clean air. I think that we can still have all the things we have now, but have it in such a way that it doesn't profit the 13 families. And I think with the money they have and the influence that they have, that even if we did go back to nature, they would still be in the same position and still have the same lifestyle. You know, the Rothschild lifestyle wouldn't change as long as we stay on the same type of using this paper money system. But because because they're not gonna let these other countries in the Middle East do anything else. Like right now, it looks like we're in a hot, heavy predicament with Russia involved in the war with ISIS and ISIS attacking France uh, and Israel just slaughtering the Palestinians uh, unmercifully and inhumane, that we have a situation now to where, uh, um, you know, where we feel maybe hopeless, and where we feel maybe that, you know, that there's nothing happier to do than watch a football game or participate in that. But I would love to see like if like a small little change, which would be well, I should be one to speak it because I know how hard it is. But just to see like if people would like maybe cut out um uncarbonated drinks, you know. Because I know when I stopped drinking soda and everything, I lost a lot of weight. So like a little change like that, just to see, for you really have to do about 4 months, just to see if there is, see if there is a change. And uh, but we do have to come together as a group, as a group, African American. I think it would have to exclude Caucasian whites, even if it is a mate or whatever, um, uh, to some degree, because of the propaganda that's been ingrained in us. Uh, uh, um, on the way we think and how we now are raising our children so that they are going from the jailhouse from their mom's house to the jailhouse, from the schoolhouse to the jailhouse. So there has to be a dramatic change. And one of them that it is that yes, we're a society where we have to work to survive. Because we no longer are we living off the land to survive for our clothes, uh, food, and housing, and our off the land and our wits and our cleverness and our ability to adapt and to work in unity as a group. We don't do that anymore. We go to work and we go to stores, the grocery store to get food. We go to the clothing store to get clothes. You can go to Walmart's and get all that. So I think that we're not gonna see a change I think that it'll be a what they call it 322. Ding, ding, ding. But I think that's just the way it is, and I think that we are not happy. We're not with the way our society is. I know we're not happy with our justice system. I know we're not happy with our school system, and I know that most of us is not happy with the pay we get from our jobs, and a lot of us are not happy with our medical care. So I think these are things that we're as a group will be more powerful if we want any change, you know. But as individuals, that we do have certain powers, but it all pertains in modern day on how much money you have. And I don't see money in the black community, and I don't see them trying to put money in the black community. I think that if we had a revolution and we had a change, um, that we would find that there's plenty of materials and plenty of food and plenty of clothing and housing for everybody, because this planet was made to make sure they provide. But the way that we're doing things now, we're limiting our amounts because of the pollution, uh, because of the war, uh, because of the greed of the few over the masses. So, and you can see that in a lot of cases that um, there are more people that are just satisfied, you know, and not to the point like of the policeman where we get so mad that we will just empty a gun because we think the law doesn't pertain to us. We as people of color and melon, we know that the laws are made strictly for us. That the prison system is on the stock market, it's making a lot of money, you know, and so I think there needs to be a change. I think that for the police even to live a happier and more productive existence and be able to really do something positive, that they have to get out of the funk and the negativity that we're in now. Because as a whole, we're letting in outside influences, you know. And let me tell you, the ones that are really controlling, they're not going to get their hands dirty. They're not going to do the dirty work. You know, you couldn't even think that you exert any power if you're going to have to do it. But they do know how to get together and plan. And I think that's something that we need to do.